In the year 1789, Europe trembled. A book, written by a former African slave, exploded across the continent. It sparked outrage, shattered lies, and exposed truths that powerful nations had buried for centuries. That man was Olaudah Equiano, a boy stolen from the heart of Igboland, raised not to lead nations, but to disappear into chains. Yet he rose higher than anyone expected, and changed the course of world history. But before Europe knew his name, before abolitionists quoted his words, before kings and parliament trembled at his testimony, there was simply a little boy. A boy who woke up one morning in the warm sun of Ithaca, believing life would always remain peaceful, predictable, and secure. He had no idea that the world was watching him. He had no idea that his story would one day awaken millions. He had no idea that the chains forged for him would be broken by his own words. History remembers kings and empires, but it often hides the stories of the children who shook the world. And this child, this small Igbo boy from the heart of West Africa, would one day expose the greatest crime of the 18th century. But Europe had no idea who was coming, because when the slave ships first captured him, they didn't know they had taken the one person who would learn their language, decode their system, master their world, and then use their own tools to bring their empire to its knees. Before the world called him Olaudah Equiano, before he became the most powerful African voice of his era, he was simply a child living in the land Europeans tried to erase from history, a land full of dignity, order, and culture. This is where the story begins. Forget the lies you were told about pre-colonial Africa. Olaudah was not born into chaos. He was not rescued from a place with nothing. He was born into Ithaca, a thriving Igbo community with warriors, farmers, blacksmiths, priests, and a social system older than some European nations. Here children were taught honor. Here courage mattered more than gold. Here a boy learned discipline, duty, and how to defend his home. This was Africa with structure, Africa with identity, Africa before disruption. And Olaudah? He was not ordinary. Fast learner, sharp memory, keen observer. He absorbed everything around him. Language, tradition, skill. Even the elders noticed him. But none of them knew that the world outside Ithaca was changing, and that the change was coming for their children first. The storm was already moving, and it would strike from inside. Not by strangers, not by white men, but by Africans selling Africans to European white strangers in exchange for the goods they brought from across the Great Sea into a system darker than anything they had ever known. And the betrayal began on a quiet afternoon. It happened fast, too fast. A peaceful day, a mother working in the fields, a child inside the compound. And then, shouts, footsteps, a door crashing open. Before Olaudah could even scream, he and his sister were grabbed, tight, dragged into the forest like animals. These were not Europeans. These were African kidnappers selling children into the growing slave pipeline feeding the coast. This was not tribal war. This was business. The business of human lives. Olaudah was dragged for miles. Bush paths, hidden routes, no water, no mercy. And that was only the beginning. He was sold again, and again, and again, sleeping in strange houses, waking up to new captors, watching other children disappear at each stop. Yet even in fear, the boy watched everything. He memorized every path, every voice, every detail. But all his memories, all his intelligence, all his spirit could not prepare him for what came next. Because after weeks of being bought and sold, after being traded like cloth or cattle, Olaudah finally reached the place no African child ever returned from, where the air smelled of salt and death, where foreign ships waited like giant metal beasts, where childhoods ended. This was the final gate, the point of no return. and Olaudah was pushed through it. Nothing in his world could prepare him for the horror he saw on that beach. Huge wooden monsters with wings, ships bigger than houses, filled with the cries of people in chains. Kids, women, elders, all trapped below the deck. The smell hit him like fire. Rot, blood, vomit. Human suffering pressed into a wooden dungeon. This was the Middle Passage, the deadliest journey ever created by man. The kidnappers pushed him toward the ship. He fought. He screamed. He begged. They didn't care. Europe, for the first time, looked at him and dismissed him as nothing. Just another African child, another body for the ledger, another number in the captain's book. But what they did not know was that this boy, this very boy, would survive the ship they designed to kill him. He would learn their language, understand their politics, master their navigation, and rise to become the most dangerous African voice in the Western world. Inside that floating hell, the child who entered in chains began a transformation that would one day make Europe tremble. The Middle Passage was only the beginning. Europe believed they had broken him. A kidnapped child, a survivor of the Middle Passage, a slave with no past and no future. But they didn't understand something crucial. A mind like Equiano's cannot be chained, only sharpened. When Olaudah Equiano was purchased by Michael Pascal, a lieutenant in the British Royal Navy, they thought they were simply acquiring another servant, a disposable helper, a silent shadow. They had no idea. They had just unlocked Africa's greatest eyewitness. He learned quickly. Too quickly. He learned their language, their customs, their rules, their weaknesses. Every instruction barked at him, every insult thrown at him, every book he touched, every conversation he overheard. All of it was shaping a man who would one day expose the empire from the inside. Equiano served in the 7 Years' War, witnessing naval battles, ships exploding, men drowning. But even in the chaos, something else was happening. He was becoming literate. He was becoming knowledgeable. He was becoming dangerous. Europe trained him to be a perfect servant, but ended up forging a historian, a revolutionary, and ultimately, their greatest nightmare. Because a slave who can read is not a slave. A slave who understands the system can dismantle it. A slave who learns to write can testify to the world. And that was Equiano's destiny. A destiny Europe accidentally unlocked. But as Equiano's mind grew stronger, the chains around his body tightened. Europe had trained a soldier, but they still owned him. And the betrayal that came next would push him to the breaking point and set him on a path toward true freedom. Equiano had served faithfully. He had risked his life at sea. He had become one of the most skilled sailors on the ship, and the crew knew it. He fought in battles. He navigated storms. He carried out orders with precision that earned him respect, even admiration. But Equiano made one fatal mistake. He believed loyalty meant something to Europeans. It did not. Equiano had been promised freedom. He believed the lies. He held on to hope. But in the slave world, a black man's achievements meant nothing. His loyalty meant nothing. His humanity meant nothing. Pascal sold him like cargo, like furniture, like an object that had no story, no memories, no dreams. But Europe had made a grave mistake. Because Olaudah Equiano was no longer the frightened child from Igboland. He was no longer the silent boy on the slave ship. He was a man who had seen Europe's war machine from the inside. A man who could speak their language, read their books, understand their systems. And now, this betrayal did not break him. It enraged him. It awakened him. It turned him into something unstoppable. This betrayal should have crushed him. It should have ended his spirit. It should have erased him from history like thousands of others. But instead, it lit the fire that would one day expose the entire slave trade to the world. The world thought they were enslaving a man. They were actually forging a weapon. And Olaudah Equiano was just getting started. After the betrayal, the Atlantic swallowed Equiano once again. But this time, the boy who once trembled in chains returned as a man ready to understand the system from the inside. The ship did not take him back to Africa. It carried him into a new nightmare. The New World. A world where sugar was gold and Africans were fuel. Barbados was too crowded, too chaotic, too dangerous. Plantation owners wanted fresh bodies, not men who had sailed with the British Navy. So Equiano was shipped again, this time northward, to Virginia. Virginia was not the naval life he knew. There was no deck to run across, no ocean breeze, no sailors to teach him words or customs. Here, Africans died quietly, one by one, nameless, forgotten. But Equiano refused to disappear. Instead, he watched, listened, learned. He learned the economics of slavery, the prices, the trades, the profits, the transport routes. He learned how enslaved people survived, how they resisted, how they formed networks, how they kept their spirit alive in a land designed to crush them. He learned that the New World was nothing more than Europe's hunger, wearing American soil. But something else happened. Equiano began to understand himself, his limits, his endurance, his purpose. The world had tried again and again to break him. His kidnapping, the Middle Passage, naval battles, betrayal, Barbados, Virginia. Yet the more they broke his body, the stronger his mind became. He was surviving not by accident, but because history needed a witness who could read, who could write, who could expose everything he saw. And history had chosen him. But Equiano's story was far from over, because in Virginia, he would soon meet the man who would unknowingly set him on the path to earning his freedom. And when Equiano finally walked as a free man, the world would never be the same again. Virginia was a land designed to destroy the spirit, a place where hope was a luxury and dreams were a crime. But Olaudah Equiano was not born to accept chains. Every day he worked, he watched. Every night he rested, he calculated. Because in the New World, survival wasn't just strength, it was strategy. And Equiano was about to learn the most dangerous secret in slavery. Freedom had a price, and knowledge was the currency. This was the first time he heard it spoken plainly. Some enslaved Africans bought their freedom. Not many, not easily, not safely, but it was possible. And Equiano, the boy taken from Igboland, the man hardened by oceans, the survivor of betrayal, now felt something he had lost long ago: hope. Robert King noticed something different. Equiano was not just strong, he was brilliant. He could read numbers, understand ledgers, negotiate, calculate weights, volumes, profits. This made him valuable, too valuable. And so, in a moment that would change history, King made Equiano an offer. If you can earn enough money, you may buy your freedom. Equiano's journey toward freedom wasn't smooth. He faced sabotage, envy, oppression. White traders cheated him. Black overseers distrusted him. Every coin he earned placed a target on his back. Because an African slave with money was an African slave who could escape. But Equiano pushed forward. He worked longer. He traded smarter. He calculated harder. He sacrificed everything. He wanted not just freedom, but the right to tell his story.
Soon,
Equiano now knew the price of freedom, but earning it would require navigating a world designed to keep him enslaved forever. And when the moment finally came, when his chains fell off. He would become one of the most powerful voices in human history. For years, Olaudah Equiano worked harder than any free man ever would. He traded, he negotiated, he labored, and every single coin he earned carried the weight of Igboland, the weight of his childhood, the weight of every African screaming on every plantation in the New World. He was not just saving money. He was building a life, a destiny, a weapon. But freedom was expensive, and it could be stolen at any moment.
I must be free.
But the closer he got to freedom, the more dangerous the journey became. Some white merchants cheated him. Some black overseers mocked him. Other slaves envied him. Even the law could take his savings at any moment. Because a slave's money was not legally his. Every coin was a risk. Every deal was a gamble. But Equiano kept pushing, because freedom meant more to him than life itself. And then, the words that shattered 26 years of chains. You have paid your full price. You are free. Olaudah Equiano didn't run. He didn't celebrate loudly. He didn't scream in triumph. He walked slowly, quietly, into a world that had never expected him to survive. A world where he would be underestimated, dismissed, ignored. But history would prove them wrong. Because that day, the day he bought his freedom, he gained something far more powerful than liberty. A voice, a pen, a mission. And that voice would soon shake the foundations of the entire British Empire. Equiano was no longer a slave, but he was not yet the man who would change the world. That transformation, that fire, that revolution was only just beginning. When Olaudah Equiano's book hit the shelves of London in 1789, nobody, not the British elites, not the slave merchants, not even the abolitionists, was prepared for what followed. Because for the first time in recorded history, a formerly enslaved Nigerian man wrote his own life story, and the world listened. His book didn't just sell well, it exploded. Politicians read it. Churches read it. Ordinary workers read it. And every page delivered a thunderbolt directly to Europe's conscience. Equiano wasn't merely telling his story. He was exposing the entire architecture of slavery from the inside. Not as theory, not as rumor, but as a man who lived it, bled through it, and survived it. Readers could not put it down. Some cried. Some raged. Some were stunned silent. And for the first time, Europe's enslaved Africans were no longer nameless statistics. They had a face and a voice. Equiano became the unofficial spokesperson of millions. He toured cities, gave speeches, challenged politicians, and confronted the public with cold truth. And in the corridors of Parliament, his voice echoed loudest. Olaudah Equiano's book, The Interesting Narrative of the Life of Olaudah Equiano, or Gustavus Vasa, the African, recorded an unprecedented success. It was published up to the 9th edition during the author's lifetime. It was translated into Dutch and German and across Europe. It outsold most books of the era. Equiano became richer than many white merchants. He built alliances with abolitionists and used media strategically. Olaudah Equiano's journey was more than survival. It was a revolution in ink, a battle fought on paper, and a legacy that would ripple through centuries. When his book became a bestseller, it did not just shock Europe, it transformed it. Equiano's voice was not just heard in London. It echoed in the streets of Paris, in the salons of Berlin, and in the hearts of millions who had never met him but who knew his story. His narrative exposed the lies of slave traders, dismantled the myths of racial superiority, and inspired a generation of activists. But Equiano's legacy was not just in the laws he helped change. It was in the minds he opened, the hearts he awakened, and the courage he ignited in others. Equiano lived to see the beginnings of a world where his people were no longer invisible, where the chains of slavery began to rust and break. His story did not end with the ink on pages. It lived in every freed soul, in every abolitionist speech, in every law that followed. And as the sun set on the British Empire's darkest chapter, Equiano's legacy shone as a beacon of hope and justice. Olaudah Equiano's journey was more than a fight for freedom. It was a testament to the power of one voice. One story, one man who dared to change the world. And so history was forever changed. Olaudah Equiano's story is not just history. It's heritage, it's resilience. It's the voice of every African soul that refused to be silenced. From the depths of slavery to the halls of power, his journey reminds us we are not what they called us. We are what we choose to become. But the story doesn't end here. It continues with you. Every view, every share, every subscription keeps these forgotten voices alive. So if this story moved you, like this video to honor Equiano's courage. Subscribe to Echoes of the Ancients, where lost African greatness is reborn. And share this documentary. Let the world remember the name Olaudah Equiano, because history forgotten is history repeated. And here, at Echoes of the Ancients, we don't just tell history, we awaken it.